Hello, Steve White, Steve White 9. Well, I'm continuing on my sci-fi movie marathon, and I watched the remake of the 1958 film The Blob, the 1988 Blob from, I guess, the 30th anniversary. It's really great. It's been a little disappointing because some of the films I watched years ago that I had really good memories of, I went back and watched, and they weren't as good as I remember. They had a few flaws that I didn't catch, I didn't notice. I wasn't looking at them as critically, I guess, and I was just reacting to them more like, just as an audience member. But the Blob really holds up. The remake it's almost perfect. There's really nothing to flaw this film on. There's one little thing that it's a superficial thing. The main actress, is it Shawnee Smith? Yes, Shawnee Smith. You may know her from Becker and the first Saw film. Her 80s hair is so bad. At the start of the film, first couple of scenes before like the sort of drama happens, and she ends up being sent home and having a shower and then sneaking out. She doesn't have the time to find the hairspray, so she looks like a human being for the rest of the film. But it's just this like helmet construction, around her head, and then the rest of her hair is just hanging down behind it. It's just awful, and it's like different tones. And aside from that, that's one little superficial flaw. The rest of the film is pretty much amazing. The makeup for the Blob, it's disgusting, it's horrifying. All the kills are just really well executed and dynamic. I mean, the okay, just briefly cover the story. The story is basically the same as the original film. There's this old man out in the woods. He finds this asteroid, this meteorite or whatever, and this blob gets on a stick that he's poking it with, and then it jumps onto his hand and then starts to absorb his hand and absorb him. These kids who are just driving around find him, take him to the doctor. The creature ends up devouring him and starting to kill everyone in the hospital. Every time it kills someone, it gets bigger and grows. And the very first guy that Shawnee Smith is with, that we think is going to be the lead for the show, for the movie, actually dies in the hospital scene. There's a really great scene. You see the blob crawl up the wall behind him when he's on the phone, and then there's something dripping on the desk, and he looks up, and the blob is on the ceiling and just drops on him. And then she comes in to rescue him, and the blob is like pulling itself over him like a sheet and just pulling all away his face and his skin and dissolving him. And she grabs his arm and tries to pull, and she pulls his arm off and ends up falling on the ground with like the arm. And it's awesome. I mean, she's great in it. I've always loved her from Becca. Candy Clark's in the film from Amityville 3. She plays like a diner owner, or she works in a diner that the characters go to for a minute. And she has a horrible death as well. She gets stuck in a telephone booth, and the blob covers it and crushes it from the inside, and you see it implode from the inside, which is well photographed and everything. The actors are all good, the characters are all good. After the main sort of lead dies, there's another character we were introduced earlier who's a bit of a outlaw, a bit of a rebel, always in trouble with the police, very antisocial. He ends up meeting up with this girl, and they end up having to work together, even though she's like a cheerleader and everything. They end up sort of helping each other and sort of saving the day. And she's got a younger brother who's gone to the cinema, snuck out to the cinema with his friend, who gets killed horribly. And this film is brutal. They kill kids in the 80s, because we had real films in the 80s, and she has to save him. And of course they discover that the blob is afraid of the cold, so they have some truck full of some freezing agent or whatever that she actually blows up, and it basically turns the whole blob into crystals, and then they basically are able to take it away. And yeah, it's just a really great film. I mean, they really did a good job of adapting it. They've kept to the main story while changing a few things, updating a few things, adding a few things. The effects are really amazing and gory and disturbing and believable while still being sort of a little comic. And the only thing that really irked me about the film was the second ending. After they sort of destroy the blob or freeze it, you see a preacher who was damaged, got like skin damage from fire earlier in the film. At the end, he's like preaching in a tent somewhere, and and some lady comes and asks him, like, when is Judgment Day coming, because he's preaching about Judgment Day, and he's holding a glass jar with, I guess he stole a crystal piece of the Blob and put it in the jar, and it's been in the jar this whole time, and he's like, is he going to release Judgment Day? He's like, and it went nowhere, so they could easily have just done without that at the end. And he has one of the best scenes early in the film, actually. He bumps into this guy at the pharmacy. He's buying condoms for a date, but he says for his friend, and the pharmacist is a bit offended. And then when he goes home and the lead is introduced to the father, by his daughter, it's the guy who was pointed out as buying the condoms, and they were ribbed condoms. And as soon as he drops the paper to see this guy's being introduced to by his daughter, he just says, ribbed. It's really good. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the original Blob or the remake, and you don't need to see Beware of the Blob. So